welcome to Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Podcast. I am Gary Howard. Thank you for joining me. Sorry my absence for a while. I had a hurricane that came through. They kind of slowed things up, causing us to have to drive to Denver to the podcast festival, which I am excited to announce that this next year will be in Boston. So hope to see you there. And with all that schedule, it's just been super busy, so I was able to do an episode. This is the episode that I actually did on my live panel over with me and Nina instead. She wrote this, so I'm gonna say that right up front. This episode was written and researched by Nina instead from the Already Gone podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, go check her out. She has a very pleasant voice, makes murder sound pleasant, but very insightful, really knowledgeable about what she does. So, yep, next year will be Boston. 25 links will be in the description. So, where are we at today? Well, we're in the murder and all that stuff happened with NECA around the area, but it's too rich of an area to have truck stops. It's like the north of Chicago. So, have you seen any of the movies back from the 90s, Uncle Buck and all that? That happened around this area. So, you have a general idea how the houses are. They're not going to have a truck stop, all our filthy asses roaming around the place. So the closest place I could find that I did stay at is the Lake Forest Oasis. Now, if you don't know what an oasis is, it's not the typical oasis like you see in a desert where it's like a water spa or thing. If you go through different roads, you have a building that goes actually across like a bridge that goes over it, which is the restaurants and everything like that. And you pull over, you park, and you go. They utilize, which I think is a genius thing. You utilize in dead space where travelers could go food, everything like that, and the only part you have is parking. But yeah, this is the Lake Forest Oasis. It's on I-44 exit 19. We're going to go on the northbound exit. Why not? Because it's on the side of where all this happened. No, it's only 15 spots, and that's one thing about these oases. I don't know if I stayed at this or not. I know I've been there for a while, been there a couple times to get some stuff, but these oases through Chicago fill up fast. Like there's some near, um, like south, like where is it? Where would that be at? By Southfield, Chicago Heights, around that area. I can't think of the name of the city. That Lincoln Oasis, I think that's what it's called. That fills up quick. You'll never, and there's always 24/7 packed. But that's the same thing here. It's always well, if cars, okay, I say packed, but as for truck parking, it's always packed because they only have 15 spots. And 94 going through the area is super busy. Now, as for cars, you might be a little bit better off. But yeah, no paid spots, all is free. Well, the first question I see is free. Is there free parking? He goes, yes, but parking is very scarce. Good luck. So there you have it. There's no address to this. It's just over the highway. And as of 4 hours ago and 11 hours ago, the lot is full. And I guarantee you, as soon as somebody pulls out, there's going to be somebody pulling in. That's like where I'm right now. I'm actually in Dallas, Texas. Actually, right south of. I can't think. My GPS says I'm in Dallas, but my phone's telling me I'm in Lancaster, so I don't know. Heading up to Plainview, Texas after this. So if you're driving up there going to Great America, which is right down the road from, not too far from here, Great America, Six Flags Great America. So that's why you're here. You're visiting Six Flags. You need to get some gas, get home or whatever. Maybe a bite to eat. Also, food is expensive at these places, by the way. What is there to eat here? Well, let's see. Nearby, you have Panda Express. A lot of these oases pretty much have the same thing. So any of them you go to is pretty much almost the same. Besides the different, one or two might be different. You have the Panda Express, KFC, where Panda Express is like a Chinese, fast food Chinese. KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Sabaro is a pizza. Then the Lake Forest Oasis stuff's like a little store, which also a 7-Eleven right there. So you get your Slurpee, hot dogs, and whatnot. Dairy Queen is right there too. Lake Forest Mobile Oasis. Let me see. Duck popcorn. I didn't see that. And here's what I like: Aunt Anna's pretzels. You can get those, are so good. I love them. Every time I get, normally I just see them like in the north. You won't see them in the south. But yeah, you have quite a bit of stuff here. to eat. So let's see what people think about it. Oh, I forgot what's the rating. It's out of 89 reviews, it got a four. It has a 4.4 star rating. So people seem to like it. But right off the bat, I'm gonna go with the newest. Yeah, this was 9 hours ago, and now this user says, "Beware of 7-Eleven scammers are working." Okay, but what are the scammers? Are they card readers on the gas pumps? There's I don't what scammers are working. Okay, so Paul Mack says gave it a 5 stars. Got here early, not very much legal parking. The place was full by 5 p.m. Yep. Here goes another guy. 3 star review. Too busy area. It's 1:30 p.m. It's full. The extra point is for Panda Express. I wouldn't stay for overnight clean bathroom though. We're busy. See, 1:30 is already packed. 5 star, just good. And here's a 4 star review. I'm probably saying this name wrong. Sambados is here. Is the best I've ever seen. They have deep dish Chicago pizza. Yes, I said pizza. Deep dish Chicago pizza. Not just a regular service plaza thing. I've stopped here 3 times and they always have lots of fresh stuff. Spaghetti, stromboli, numerous pizzas, and some great veggie items. So he is happy. Clean restrooms. Here you go. 4 star review. If you can't find parking spot, and trust me, that's a huge if. No, it said if you can find a parking spot. And trust me, that's a huge if. All capital, huge if is all uppercase. This place is awesome for a 10 with lots of food choices, but it doesn't matter what time you arrive. It's essentially pure luck whether a spot will be open or not. See what I'm telling you about this place? Here's a 3 star review. This place is nothing to jump joy about. Yeah, they have a massive food court and plenty of space to enjoy your food and sitting over the turnpike to see the vehicles on the road from above, which is cool. They have 2 restrooms. They have, let me see, where was I? I had to click on it to get to the rest of it. They have 2 restroom sections, one on each of the buildings. The most negative thing about the travel plaza is how gross the grounds are outside are, and very limited truck parking. If my post helped in any way, please like it. And there's pictures of her, pictures of the truck, pictures of all the trash. Oh, you see somebody who did jump the curb. That's the pictures of her staring at the traffic going underneath her. And they have these buses. That's really cool. I have never won anything on them. It's a claw machine. Have like mystery cups. And no. So one more review. Rude at 1 star review from Anonymous. It says rude and dishonest people work there, especially at Middle East shawarma. It tastes bad. They don't give you receipt, charge you about $20 for almost nothing. So there you go. If you're traveling the interstate, turnpike, whatever it may be, heading up to Great America, or coming back from Great America, or heading up to Wisconsin, seeing a concert at the Alpine Valley, you might be stopping here. Like I said, it's horrible for trucks, but for cars, it's probably not too bad. There's plenty of parking for cars, but 15 for trucks, yeah. So what are we going to talk about today? This is, like I said, this was written and researched by Nina Instead from the Already Gone podcast, and we're going to talk about the many faces of Lori Dann. Now, this is one of the cases that stuck with me because I'm originally from, I mean, I live in Texas right now, but I'm originally from Chicago, and I remember when this was all going down. The news was out there. She had a big shootout at a school that she held a family captive, which I'll get into, and I remember it all. So, and for some reason, I don't know, it stuck with me, and I always talk to my wife about it, and I could never find no podcasts about it. Now there's plenty of YouTube channels and everything about the many faces of Lori Dann, but the first one that I've heard about it is that actually spoke good about it because Lori Dann did have a lot of mental issues. A lot of people say that she was this little rich prissy kid who just didn't get her way, or just everybody glorifies she's burning in hell and everything, but she did have a lot of mental issues that could have been helped out. And I'll go through all the situations, and she just didn't know how to she didn't know what the hell to do. She didn't know how to react. She had schizophrenia. She had a lot of issues. But before I start off, there was only one murder. I mean, there's a lot of people, children got shot because it was at an elementary school where she finally snapped. And one person was murdered. His name was Nicholas Brett Corman. I'm gonna start off with him. Yeah, he was. Luckily, like I said, a lot of kids died. One of his team classmates actually said that when the shooting happened, that Nicholas pushed him out of the way and got shot instead. I can't see if say or not, but yeah, Nick Corman was born April 9th, 1980, to Joel and Linda Corman in Chicago, Illinois. In school, he was a student athlete known for his sportsmanship and skills. His name has since been attached to a popular soccer field and playground in Winnetka, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. According to a report in People magazine, 1,500 people attended Corman's funeral. Shortly after death, playing on the meaning of his name, Giver of Gifts, his friends and schoolmates created a book, The Gifts That Nicholas Gave. Of course, followers of Corman's death, Winnetka passed a handgun ban which stood until D.C. versus Heller had by the NRA laws, subsequent NAR laws. So yeah, Corman is interred in the Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie. So yeah, he is. I'm going to start off with him instead of getting to the end. So a lot of people are like, why are you glorifying the killer? I mean, how about this poor boy? So you know what? I'm just going to start off with him because he is. There's everybody. I mean, he is the victim just as well. Lori is just as victim as him. She just had mental issues that caused all this. Their parents could have helped. Her husband could have helped. Many situations, but we'll get into that. But yeah, Nicholas, they call him Nicky. Nicholas Brian Corman was born April 9th, 1980. He was murdered May 2nd, 1988. He was 8 years old. As said, he's in Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie, Illinois. His memorial ID is 8589 no 5980. I don't know what the memorial ID does, but I like to put it out just in case some people search for it. But let's talk about the many faces of Lori Dann. Today we're talking about a wild true crime case out of Chicago, the short life and violent death of Lori Dann. She's best known for her events that occurred on the last day of her life when she embarked in a murderous spree through the well-heeled northern suburbs of Chicago. Before we get into the story, we need to caution you that there is a graphic description of sexual abuse and, of course, the murder of a child. She was born Lori Wasserman on October 18, 1957, the daughter of parents Norman and Edith Wasserman. Lori joined a brother who was 5 years her senior. While she was born in the city of Chicago, Lori grew up in Highland Park and Glencoe, Illinois. If you aren't familiar with the Highland Park or Glencoe, they are located north of Chicago, right on Lake Michigan. These are among the wealthiest communities in Illinois and in the Midwestern part of the United States. As a child, Lori attended West Ridge Elementary School and later Red Oak Middle School, where she had a reputation of being very quiet, especially good at spelling. Peers would recall greeting her with a hello as they passed in the hallway, but Lori would just look at them in response to their greeting stare, just didn't know how to act. And personal relationships was never a really strong point of Lori's. She struggled to connect with people and had very few friends. Lori was an average-looking girl of average intelligence, while her parents Norman and Edith couldn't make their daughter smarter or more socially adept. They could improve her appearance. First, she saw the orthopedist, I'm sorry, I'm not the best reader, orthodontist who struggled, straightened her smile. Then Wasserman sent teenage Lori to a plastic surgeon. The surgery transformed Lori from average to attractive, and while their daughter might not be the smartest or most outgoing, she was now good looking, a petite 5'3" with straight teeth, long hair, and dark eyes. Which they should have went ahead and gave her some counseling and try to build up her, make her inner self beautiful instead of her outer self. So it's like putting, I don't know, or I'm not saying a gift wrapper over a piece of shit, but still, if inner, okay. As a teenager, I could go off on just bypass the whole story. But as a teenager, she attended Highland Park High School for her freshman and sophomore year. In the summer between her sophomore and junior year, her parents purchased a luxurious five-bedroom home in Glencoe, and Lori transferred to a new school. It is my understanding that the plastic surgery that transformed her features into a more attractive version occurred during the summer when she was between schools. Lori struggled to make girlfriends, but she never lacked a date on Friday night. Well, in high school, Lori and her had boyfriends, but it didn't do well with other girls her age. There were very few female peers in her social circle. Lori Wasserman flat out said to more than one person, "I don't have any friends and I don't know what to do." Yet when someone greeted her passing, she would look at them blankly and not respond. Like she didn't know how to. She didn't know how to make friends, or she didn't know how to react with friends. Despite meager grades upon graduation from New Trier High School in 1975, Lori Wasserman headed off to college, attended Drake University in Iowa. New Trier is a highly regarded high school, and it's not surprised that even a mediocre student could head off to college after graduation. I believe her parents probably had some to do with that too, money-wise, because they were well off. While a student at Drake, one of the girls from New Trier, Trier, I kept saying Trier, but it's Trier, spotted her on campus. She was happy to see a familiar face, even if it was Lori Wasserman, who she didn't know very well. They lived in the same building and had a class together. The student greeted Lori and suggested that they walk to class together. Lori's response is odd. She essentially agrees that they should walk together and tells her that Lori, doesn't have any friends and she doesn't know what to do. The two young women continued in the same class and saw each other for a couple times a week for the duration of the term. Let Lori will have let yet Lori will have no memory of meeting this young woman when they cross paths again in a few years later. After completing her freshman year at Drake, she transfers to Arizona State University. At Arizona State, she pledged a sorority Alpha Delta Pi, and while in Arizona, Lori embarked on the first serious romantic trip of her life. When Lori was a junior in college, she began seeing a fellow student. He was an undergrad in the pre-med program. Lori thought their relationship was serious and perhaps this guy was the one. Despite her feeling despite her feelings for him and her hope for something long-term between them, Lori's behavior was becoming increasingly bizarre and unsettling. She was suspicious and controlling, though her actions she demonstrated a lack of trust in her boyfriend. Put off by the unpredictability and anger, he ended up he ended the relationship and Lori struggled following the breakup. Remember, she's alone in Arizona. She's not one to have set up. She don't have a lot of close friends to guide her through the abrupt ending of her first serious relationship. And I think that's one of the things that she had her mindset in college is that I don't think she was ever looking for education. She was looking for something like her parents had, because that was what she idealed as a life. You know, you had the husband that worked and the wife that took care of the house and everything, and that's what she thought she was trying to do. She was trying to find a husband in college. I don't think she was really ever serious about her education. And so, a friend of the couple will later say that he didn't see anything disturbing in the behavior of Lori Wasserman. She was possessive and clingy, but according to his college colleague quoted in June 5th, 1988, Chicago Tribune, Lori was never a budding psychopath. Sorry, psychopath here in Arizona. He never saw it. If she was, he never saw it. In the summer of 1980, and much to her disappointment, Lori's first serious relationship is over. Rather than sticking her things out in Arizona and earning those last credits needed for her degree, which she'll never get, Lori's parents help pack her things and she returns home to Glencoe, Illinois. Lori would now enroll at Northwestern University. She attended to complete her studies there. So as soon as she came home, her parents did not want her to back to school. You have to go back to school. Now, I don't know that. That's just my speculations. But yeah, the change of scene in schools wasn't enough to rally her. Lori was not in a good place mentally. If you were at the live panel, if you listen to this, this is when we switched talking at the panel. The change of scene in schools wasn't enough. I'm not going to say that through the whole. I just want to say that right now. The change of scene in schools wasn't enough to rally her. Lori was not in a good place mentally, and she dropped down Northwestern without completing the requirements needed to earn her degree. This is one of the first clear signs that Lori needed help beyond what her family could offer. Unfortunately, no one responded to her need, and she continued to struggle. So they just ignored her. In 1981, things weren't looking good for Lori Wasserman. Undecided about her future and grappling with emergent mental illness, Lori takes a summer job as a waitress at the Green Acres Country Club in Northbrook, Illinois, for a Jewish community. It was there where she met Russell Dann, the son of a prominent Highland Park family. Lori, a petite brunette figure in a figure hugging waitress uniform, was hard to resist, and Russell Dann asked for her number. Now the funny thing about it was he did not hear Lori's name. I don't remember, but a lot of the stuff that I add extra, well, you don't know what's extra. A lot of stuff I add to this is also from the book Murder of Innocence. You can get that. There's also a movie with Bertinelli in it. I can't think of her last name. Murder of Innocence. That's really good. But the book Murder of Innocence really goes over this. But he actually misunderstood her name. Instead of Lori, I want to say Donna, something similar to that. And she never called him back. She never called him. So when he did meet Lori at this time, and he was kind of nervous about it because he thought, Lori said that was her sister that he had met. So then finally she actually told him that no, it was me, because he actually told her because he was nervous that one day he might meet Lori's sister and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I met your sister not too long ago and got her number. I'm sorry I never called her back. You should know that was me." you know. But she was just playing along with that. Russell, known as Rusty, was a catch, dark-haired and good-looking. He came from money, likely more money than Washerman's had. His family owned an insurance agency, and I don't mean a storefront office. I mean the Dan name was a prominent building in the community. He knew Lori was a bit off, but he loved her, and after months of dating, he would propose to her in Boca Raton, Florida, where, if I said that, Boca Raton, Florida, while they were on vacation at her parents' second home. Lori Wasserman and Russell Dann married in September of 1982. The Wassermans, Norm and Edith, would spend a lot of time in that Florida house. I think they spent more time there than they would helping Lori. But yeah, at the request of the Wassermans, the wedding was small. While Rusty had a large family and many friends, Lori was the only girl in their family and had no girlfriends to call on for the big day. With financial help and support from their parents, the Dans purchased a spacious home in a good neighborhood, a place to start their lives together and someday begin a family. Lori Dan appears to have it all: a handsome husband with a good career, a beautiful home, a generous budget to furnish and decorate to her liking. Lori had other issues. The mental health struggles that plagued her were not being resolved. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, if your mental issues are not being resolved, it's not going to really, money don't help things. It's not going to help. The newly married Lori has everything a girl can want: a lovely home, an attractive husband, and a generous budget to decorate her home. Her days are her own to spend as she likes. If her parents thought a marriage and home would improve her situation, they were wrong. Lori had the time and the means to furnish and decorate the house, but she lacked motivation. Her thoughts were just jumbled. I think she was just actually overwhelmed by it all as well. Rusty worked long days at the agency and looked forward to dinner with his pretty wife at the end of the day, but Lori couldn't complete basic household tasks like cooking or laundry. He would come home from work and find his wife on the sofa staring at the television wet laundry hidden in random drawers, and instead of his dinner in the microwave, he'll find Lori's cosmetic stashed there. One winter day, there was an event at Dan's family's business. It was held at the Drake Hotel in Chicago. Imagine a fancy end of the year holiday gathering. Men in suits and women in cocktail dresses. Well, at the party, Lori Dan ran into the woman who recognized her from both high school and college. You remember her? When she was introduced to Lori and Rusty, the woman reminded Lori that they had attended college together in Iowa and they had a class together. In response, Lori looked at her blankly and didn't reply. It was like if they never met before. Even though they've attended high school and college together, Lori had nothing to say. And during this time, which was a really touching part thing, was that Dan had bought her an outfit, like a sweatsuit outfit, because she knew that it was coming apart, but she didn't know how to, react to her situation. She thought she was trying her best, but she just could not make him happy. So what he bought her a sweatsuit, like sweatpants and everything, and she thought that as long as she had that sweatpants on and sweatshirt on, that Dan would never leave. So she wore the same outfit all the time. This gives you the type of mentality Lori was. But her inability to relate to others in social situations and her bizarre behavior at home, Lori appeared to be depressed and distracted, unable to complete basic tasks like laundry, like I said, and preparing simple meals. She was also showing signs of obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. People use the term OCD to revert to quirks about themselves. Actually, OCD is deliberating, is debilitating. Ugh, I'm sorry, and it can interfere with a person's ability to function day to day. Symptoms of OCD include intrusive or persistent thoughts that cannot be ignored. And some people with OCD, the thoughts can lead to unwanted routines and behaviors that are rigid. Trying to ignore the thoughts or to avoid the behaviors causes great distress. It sounds like one of my post-traumatic stress disorders that I have. So yeah, I do have PSD from the Army. But yeah, Rusty later reported that Lori would tap her foot when the car stopped at a traffic light, and she washed her hands repeatedly. Rusty had parties, dinners, and work functions to attend and needed his wife beside him. But as weeks and months went by, Lori would no longer leave the house, not even with her husband. She would also, every time he left for work, she'd have to tap the couch before she left, because if she didn't do that, something bad would happen to him. And yeah, he loved her, but he couldn't go on this way. He talked to her about her behavior, but she didn't know what to do to fix it or to get better. He provided for the couple, and Lori spent the day sitting in the front of the television watching TV, which don't sound too bad, long as you get everything done. But yeah, in 1985, after 3 years of marriage, Rusty moved out of their home, taking an apartment nearby. He suggested that Lori return to Glencoe to her parents, and he put their home on the market. To give you an idea give you where and how Lori and Rusty lived. Today, at 2000, now this is written a while back ago, so I didn't research it and see what it was, but when this was written, a 2,700 square foot home is valued approximately 575,000. So it's probably close to $1 million now. By the way, before he moved out, he actually contacted Lori's parents and said that they needed her there, but they refused. They said they're on vacation. They'll get up there once the vacation's over with, which I have 3 kids, 2 girls and 1 boy, and a son. And if they need me, and me and Desiree both agreed on this. If we're ever on vacation and someone says, hey, your daughter needs you or your son needs you, our vacation's ending right there. I don't care. But unfortunately, the Wassermans didn't feel that way. They needed to finish their vacation. So within days of leaving, Rusty began receiving repetitive hang-up phone calls, sometimes dozens of calls in a day. The calls weren't limited to Russell. His parents and siblings also were getting them. While Lori was back home with her parents, a young divorcee, she wasn't happy, just like when she broke up with her college sweetheart. She had no close friends to guide her, no one to take her out for drinks or an afternoon by the water to talk things through. Lori was with her family, but she was alone. She had nobody to talk to, that was what she really needed. In April of 1986, Lori is at home with her parents after her marriage fell apart due to her embarrassing mental illness. Russ is puzzled when he learns that Lori filed a police report claiming that he broke into her parents' home and vandalized it. When questioned by police, Russ denied the allegations and was not arrested or charged. Days after filing a report, Lori Dann purchased a .357 Magnum handgun. When police learned of the purchase, they went to Washman's home where they encountered Lori's father, Norm Washman. In speaking with him, police strongly suggested that she not have access to the weapon. Washman refused to confiscate the gun from Lori, and said he refused to confiscate the gun, but said he would make sure it was secured and locked up in a safe. His reason was because he said that Lori needed to protect herself too, because Russ was, a crazy man coming after her. So make a note of this, another opportunity to stop Lori and get her much needed help, but didn't. She didn't need a handgun. And this was times where anybody could get a gun. All you had to do is fill out a few questions and you could lie about it. There was no background check or nothing like that. But yeah, in September 1986, an unknown person broke into Russell's apartment in the middle of the night. They crept in the bedroom where Lori Dann slept and stabbed him once in the chest with the ice pick. He survived the attack, using the phone to call an ambulance. Paramedics transferred him to the hospital for treatment. He almost died. Rusty was lucky the ice pick missed his heart by inches. Police investigated the attempted murder, but Dan told them about his mental unbalanced wife and how he moved into the apartment as the divorce was processed. He moved into the apartment. Police spoke with Lori about the incident and she denied involvement. Following the stabbing, a store clerk came forward to say that she sold Lori an ice pick to Lori just days before the attack. Despite the clerk reporting the sales, no witnesses placed Lori at the same. Police issued. By this way, Dan was furious. He was just going crazy. He was not being helpful to the police at all. So police issued polygraphs to Russell and Lori. In a bizarre twist, Russell Dan failed his polygraph, but Lori passed. Yeah, because like I said, he was super mad. So it's kind of that they test your blood pressure, your heart rate, and everything. So yeah, he was going to fail. Rusty Dan wanted the police to understand that someone, likely his soon-to-be ex-wife, broke in and stabbed him in the chest. Unfortunately, they weren't taking him seriously. This happened in part because the doctors who examined him after the attack speculated that Russell could have stabbed himself. After all, he wasn't badly injured. And I always wondered about this. If Lori, I don't know if she knew it was the heart, was she was just taking it lightly on him. I don't think Lori was meaning to kill him. I don't think she knew where her mind was at the time. She just wanted to retaliate. So the police decided not to charge Lori in the incident. Between the doctor's opinion of his injury and the failed polygraph, they didn't believe him. So another missed opportunity to stop Lori. So they could have helped her out there too. Even if it meant you filing charges and put her in jail, well, at least in jail she'd be forced to get the mental help she needs. I want to mention that it wasn't until the late 80s, say 1988 or 89, that the law enforcement stopped looking at polygraphs as some sort of magical device. But in 1986, Lori passed her polygraph while Russell failed was enough for people to decide that he was not telling the truth, which me and my wife Desra actually talked about this. Her name is Desra. About New Mexico, actually, the polygraph, because it's not admissible in court, but it is admissible in court in New Mexico. This is what she was telling me. If anybody knows, if anybody made it this far in the podcast, still listening, let me know in my Facebook group or email me at trucksnotmurder@gmail.com. That's let me know if that's true. If polygraphs are actually, maybe I need to just message Eric. He's another podcaster that I talk to all the time. But yeah, with Rusty recovering from the ice pick attack. But yeah, let me know. Lori set her sights on her college boyfriend. Remember the guy from Arizona, the doctor which moved on with his life. But yeah, she sent the non-married doctor a string of letters. While the letter started harmless, eventually Lori told him that she was pregnant with his child, even though they have not seen him for a while, which was ridiculous, as she hadn't seen him in more than 5 years. When her letters didn't, get the response that she hoped for, Lori stepped up her effects. She contacted the hospital where he was employed. She told him that she had been treated in the emergency room and he sexually assaulted her during the exam. This accusation didn't fly for lots of reasons. Starting with there was no record of her being in the hospital, and she was calling from the suburbs of Chicago while he worked in Arizona. Upset by the bizarre accusations and continued persistent unwanted contact from Lori, the doctor first contacted the police, and when that didn't help, he got a lawyer involved. Lori's parents again contacted by law enforcement and told that the harassment needs to stop, which puts a temporary end to the bizarre behavior toward the doctor and his family. In addition to placing harassing calls to her college boyfriend, Lori was allegedly responsible for dozens, if not hundreds, of calls placed to the family of her former husband. Not just Rusty, but his sister, parents, got many phone calls, all through the night. At one point, Lori was arrested for harassment, but charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. This was before the caller IDs and all that stuff, too. Keep in mind, nothing back then was like it is now. Right now, that's what had been stopped immediately. Lori seemed particularly fixated on Rusty's sister, Susie. In April of 1987, Lori told the police that Russell, her soon-to-be former husband, had, quote, raped her with a steak knife. She was given a physical exam which demonstrated that she had not been assaulted in this way, but again, Lori is given a lie detector test and she passes it, just like she did after the soon-to-be ex-husband was stabbed in 1986. So police talked with her parents, who would tell them that Lori is under the care of a psychiatrist. And if you've been listening to a lot of my episodes, you know I have a hard time saying that. I don't know why. For OCD, which we don't even know if it's true. They could just been covering up for Lori. And in May of 1987, after 4 years of marriage, the divorce of Lori and Rusty is finalized. Lori received a settlement of $125,000, and in the divorce, that's over $300,000 in today's money. Lori left the marriage, but she kept her name, Lori Dann. I guess that's some way she could feel like she's still part of his life, just like the sweatsuit that I said earlier that she kept because she didn't think he'd leave. I'm assuming that she thought as long as she had his name, he'll always be there for her. But as a parting gift to Russell Dann, in May of 1987, she reported to police that Russell Dann left an incinerator device at the home she shared with her parents. The wording is interesting. The incinerator device is something meant to start a fire, something Lori will soon be doing. In 1987, fresh off her divorce. Now, by the way, this is like a cocktail. Them cocktail things where you fill with gas and a rag hangs out of it, you set on fire, you break it, and gas goes everywhere. With this, it was just set on the counter, so it would never start itself on fire. So I don't think she did not know what she was doing. Maybe it's a cry for help, I don't know. But in 1987, fresh off her divorce, almost 30-year-old Lori Dann needed something to do with her time. She decided to try babysitting. She posted flyers at the Glencoe Library and a corner grocery store and soon received calls for work. Lori watched children at several homes in the area, and not surprisingly, her clients reported several bizarre incidents, including leather sofas being sliced open, rugs being cut apart, and garage door operators going missing. Lori, of course, denied any knowledge of the involvement. Her parents again stepped in, offering financial restitution of the damaged items instead of helping, just paying to cover it up. We got you, Lori. We'll pay for you. Just continue doing instead of giving her help, to try to stop this. The babysitting is fine, but Lori wanted to finish her degree and enrolled at Northwestern. Her father secured a private dorm room for her on campus. Keep in mind, she's turning 30 in October and returning to dorm life, where she will be surrounded by students who were aged from 17 to 22, so she was old. Moving into a dorm room seems like an odd choice, which when I joined the Army, it was kind of the same way because I was 35 when I joined the Army. So joining the Army where everybody from 17 to 22, it was just weird. They told me I was ancient, I was old, but that was fine with me. Her return to school, matter of fact, my nickname during my second deployment was Pops. Funny. But yeah, it's a different world when you're that old and you're with the younger, people. Her return to school was a complete disaster. Lori's behavior was bizarre. Now, she really didn't go to school. She was just there to live. She was like a walk-in surprise, student, so she could monitor it. But during this time, she would get raw meat and stick it in the couch cushions in common areas. She would collect garbage and fill students' mailboxes with it. Her hygiene slipped, and she bathed in, not very often. Her dorm room was filthy. The walls and furniture stained, and puddles of urine made the floor a stinking, treacherous mess. And there were still guys coming over that want to have any, sexual intercourse with her. That's the college students. They don't care. Yeah, the university called the Wassermans to say that this is not working out. Please come get your daughter. Her dorm room was so disgusting that it was declared a health hazard. While Lori trashed her room and filled it with waste and garbage, it didn't get in the way of her sleeping habits. She would just simply sleep the night in her car. The situation in Northwestern is both horrifying and unbelievable sad. Really sad. It's clear that Lori is disturbed, but rather getting the help that she needs. Her father again gets his checkbook out to make the problems go away, paying for damages and whisking Lori back to the family home. After being kicked out of Northwestern for her bizarre and disturbing behavior, we are left thinking how miserable it must have been, to be Lori Wasserman Dam, stinking and friendless, overwhelmed with persistence of intrusive thoughts that consumed her day and left a normal life out of reach. Several weeks later, in summer of 1987, Norm Wasserman rented an apartment for her daughter in Evanston near the campus of Northwestern. While Lori didn't register for classes, she would spend time riding elevators in the building for hours. Lori also wore gloves on her hands to avoid touching anything metal. Between riding elevators and wearing gloves, it appears her OCD disorder was poorly managed. She'll also go downstairs where the TV room is at and just fly through the channels and just so fast you can't see nothing on. And if somebody was in there, she'd just come and grab the remote control and take over. And nobody just left her alone because that's a crazy elevator woman. So they didn't not want to talk to her. So they just let her to her own means. Yeah, while living in the off-campus apartment, Lori was seen by a psychiatrist, but in November, I said it, in November 1987, not long after her 30th birthday, her parents moved her to Madison, Wisconsin. While in Wisconsin, she started several new treatment techniques. She saw a new psychiatrist, worked with a behavior therapist, and began taking two medications in an attempt to relieve her symptoms. While living in Madison, Lori purchased a second-hand gun. She selected a .32 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver. The new medications aren't helping. Lori was still riding elevators for hours at a time, and it was thought she developed an eating disorder as she weighed less than 100 pounds. In December of 1987, Lori decided to buy herself a gift. Surprise, another gun. She now owns three weapons, but remember her father promises the 357 was locked up where she couldn't access it, which is a lie. Just like the police requested, spoiler alert, Norman Watson was not honest with the police. He did not lock it up. In addition to gun ownership and elevator riding, Lori's hobbies include making dozens, if not hundreds, of phone calls each day. According to a piece of Chicago Tribune, at the end of 1987, several friends and family members of Russell Dann asked to meet with police to discuss ongoing harassing calls from Lori. A lot of it was just call and just hang up on it. Calls were just hang-ups. The caller, thought to be Lori Dann, would threaten to murder the wife or child of the person who answered the phone. Remember Lori's unhealthy obsession with Russell's sister Susie? Susie received a barrage of prank calls. Lori's parents were asked to turn over the phone bills to further investigation, but they refused to comply with the request and no, making it difficult to prosecute Lori for harassment. Which maybe if they did that, maybe she would have been in jail and we would still have Nicholas. But you remember the new course of outpatient treatment Lori was receiving in Wisconsin? Remember that in March of 1988? Lori stopped attending appointments with her psychiatrist and therapist. Her psychiatrist and her father tried to persuade her to go back. This was the first time her dad actually tried to help. herself into the hospital for inpatient treatment, but Lori refused. And so maybe she needed to be forced into it. It sounds bad, forcing you to mental, but some situations, I don't know. Weeks later, a janitor in the building where she lived entered a maintenance room where he finds Lori Dan laying on the floor under a trash bag. She's naked and curled in a, laying down in a fetal position. Her parents are contacted, and she's naked in a trash bag, by the way, too. And Lori returns home the next day. The FBI arrives in Madison, Wisconsin to talk to them about the death threats, because now it's going across state lines. FBI's involved. Threats and persistent phone calls, but Lori is gone. She left Madison in the pre-dawn hours of May 16th. The FBI was involved in the case because Lori was making threats to friends and both families of her former husband and her college boyfriend. These threatening and harassing calls crossed state lines. The FBI advised law enforcement in Madison, Wisconsin that something was wrong with Lori Dan and they suspected that she owned the gun. Yeah, three of them. Lori Dan owned three handguns and ice pick, and she was not taken into custody. Another missed opportunity that she could have been put away and helped. While living with her parents, Lori became domestic. She rarely managed to cook for her husband, and they were married, and now she's taken bacon and preparing things. So she's trying to do some things. Her kitchen efforts included several trays of Rice Krispie treats that she delivers to fraternity houses in Evanston, Illinois. They were very special treats. When Lori was living in Madison, Wisconsin, she done a fair amount of shoplifting. She stole clothing and wigs and hid up the hardware store when she stole packages of arsenic, which was a very weak dose of arsenic. So all items she brought with her back to Glencoe, and now she's putting them to use. The poison snacks were dangerous, and fortunately, they were so nasty that no one wanted to eat them. This is good news that no one was injured in her attempts to poison them. And also, it was so weak of arsenic. I think it was like one, really diluted. So it wasn't like full strength arsenic. It was really diluted. So even if they did eat a lot of it, they would have just got sick. I don't think there would have any chances of dying from Lori snacks. Back home, Lori is going out of hand. She is not a good place mentally or emotionally. She pays a visit to a family in Forest Glen Drive that she worked for previously, asking if they needed her service. And by the time she was a wreck, her hair was a mess, netted. And look, she definitely seen better days. But yeah, the family said, "Gee, sorry, we're about to move out of state, so no, we won't be needing any sitters." Lori offered to take the two children to a county fair the next day. The parents, who are in the middle of a big move, agree that it would be nice a getaway for the kids and some free time for the busy parents. She tells them she'll be back at 9 o'clock the next morning to pick up the boys. Lori goes home and begins preparing for her events of May 20th. She makes more tainted food. She mixes up arsenic and water and draws it in a syringe. Then she uses the syringe to inject poison into juice boxes. On the morning of May 20th, Lori gets up early and leaves the house, making several stops where she delivers poison snacks and juice boxes to homes in Winnetka, Highland Park, and Glencoe. Unfortunately, her attempts are not working. Artemis. Lori also stopped at the post office where by the word Ameurish. I think I stopped there and asked Nina what that say too. As you know, I'm not the best reader. I do try. Lori also stopped at the post office where she mailed packages to her ex-husband Rusty Dan and her former psychiatrist. The packages contained tainted juice, but the recipients were smart enough not to consume the drink. Of course, it was probably leaking all over the place. Of course. When she arrives to pick up the boys for their trip to the fair, Lori serves them milk that she tainted with arsenic as well. The boys only take a small sip of the foul-tasting milk, pouring it into the sink when she wasn't looking. The boy's mother will be home that day doing chores. Wait, let me start again. The boy's mother will be home that day doing chores and preparing for the move while the boys were out with Lori. She has no idea how sick Lori Dan is or the madness that will ensure, because she covered it up good. Besides, it's situations, she in the normal day, she was able to cover it up. Everybody thought she was just normal, who didn't really know Lori. But yeah, instead of taking the boys to the fair as promised, Lori drove to Ravenna Elementary School in Highland Park. Remember her session with Susie Dam, her former sister-in-law? Susie's kids attended that elementary school. When Lori arrives, she opens up exterior door to the building and throws in a homemade incinerator. Well, she put it in like a little clubhouse, and when the kids was walking to the library, something like that, one of the kids saw it. But Lori put gasoline in the bags and threw the flaming mess in the building, but fortunately it was caught before it was able to really catch on fire. So they got it out. There was a small fire, but yeah, it was quickly extinguished and no one was injured. In 9:30, Dann is the Young Men's Jewish Council in Highland Park. She attempts to enter the building while carrying a gas can, but a custodian stops her. Lori flees back to the car where the two boys wait for her as she completes her strange errands. The location is notable because it's where her former sister-in-law once sent her children for preschool. With her attempt to attack the Young Men's Jewish Council, you know, thwarted, didn't go through, Lori drove the boys back home, where their mother was surprised to find them back so soon. She was in the basement doing laundry. When the boys came downstairs to greet her, she headed upstairs to see Lori. When the mother attempted to leave the basement, she found that the stairwell was consumed with flames. So she brought the kids up right at the top. Lori set fire to the home, trapping the mother and sons in the basement. The trio was able to escape through through a basement window. It was about 10:30 a.m. or on May 20th, 1988. This is the day this all went down. After leaving the homes in flames, Lori headed to Hubbard Woods Elementary. It's likely she heard the sirens from the fire trucks racing to put out the fire, she said as she entered the school. Once inside, Lori is carrying a plastic bag containing her three handguns. Lori's father told police the guns were safe and under lock and key. Washerman, of course, lied. Lori had them the whole time. Lori had full access to the weapons and ammunition, and she had them with her on May 20th. Inside the school, Lori encounters 6-year-old Robert Trossman. She shoots him once, drops the gun on the floor, and heads down the hall. The sounds of the gunshot is loud, but no alarm is raised. Everyone assumes the sound of the report was everything other than what it was. Lori finds an open door and walks into the classroom where she sits down near the substitute teacher who's in the middle of giving a lesson for the class. The teacher, Amy Moses, didn't understand why this woman was in the room. She thought at first that she could be a parent or another staff member or just another teacher coming in and monitoring, because that day what they were doing was it was bike day, and a lot of the kids, including Nicholas, was super excited about taking his bike because you had to do an outside bike test and a written bike. So they've already did the outside bike test. You have to go through like a little obstacle course and stuff like that. So next thing to do was to do the written class test. So once you pass all that, you were able to ride your bike home to school, back and forth to school. So they're in the middle of doing that. So she thought maybe Lori was a teacher just monitoring it, so she gave her one of the tests. But after watching the teacher and students for a moment, Lori produces the gun and orders the children to move to one side of the room. When she begins firing and the teacher struggles with her, trying to get the gun, stop the shooting or something, Lori Dann will murder like an 8-year-old Nicholas Corin and wound 5 other students before running out of the building. And like I said, the report said one of the kids was pushed out of the way by Nicholas, saving his life, but sadly taking Nicholas's life. Lori is in a panic as she drives away. Also, this was also the day the fire chief had a funeral, so a lot of the roads were shut down. So she came out and she saw it all, and she guided her car at a high speed down a dead end street, her regular route was closed, of course. Realizing too late that the road is ending, she loses control of the vehicle and crashes into a tree. Lori steps out of the damaged car, this is what always baffled me, why did she do this? Strips off her blood-soaked shorts, which I don't know why it was bloody from the blood from the kittens or what, I don't know. I don't know where the blood came from. if she was injured or the bullet came from one of the children she shot. I don't know. She wraps a plastic bag around her waist and runs to a nearby house where she enters through the back door. Inside, she finds Ruth Andrew and her 20-year-old son, Philip. Ruth and Philip looked wild-eyed at the half-naked Lori as she tells them that she had been raped and shot the attacker. But the police don't believe her. The Andrews want to help the desperate, disabled woman. Ruth comforts Lori and gets pants for her to wear. The Andrews quickly realize that Lori is deeply disturbed, and as the air fills with sirens, it dawns on them that the police response unfolding at the school near their home is because of the woman in their house. Philip's father returns home from work early, disturbed by news reports about what was happening in the neighborhood. Yeah, just this is it was all over the news. I remember watching it as it happened, and I was in the south suburbs. I lived in Saltville at the time. But yeah, I was with the carnival. I'm not for sure if I was with the carnival. I know I was in the carnival at '88, but I might have been home. I don't remember at this time, and it's been a while. So, but yeah, he walked to find Lori Dan holding his wife and son at gunpoint. The family's trapped with Lori Dan for hours. During that time, Lori called home and her mother begged her to turn herself in, but she really did to not to hurt anyone else. Philip Andrew spoke with Edith Wasserman, telling her that she should come pick up Lori, that she should come and help her. Of course, as her whole life, Edith refused, saying that she didn't drive. When I read this, I just lost it because yeah, I will be driving. I'll find a way to my kid. There are 100 different ways she could have gotten to Lori. She could have put a stop to the carnage right then and there. Instead, Edith did nothing to help her youngest child. She did nothing to help the Andrews family. Edith Washman did nothing. And Chicago does have a lot of public transportation, so she could have took public. I mean, this was before Uber and Lyft, but she could have took public transportation. And I think this time Norm was unemployed. I mean, retired, so he could have went because he does eventually show up. But yeah, eventually Lori's father arrives at the scene and tries calling for Lori and talking to her through the bullhorn. Even Rusty Dan shows up, hoping that he can persuade his former wife to do the right thing and stop the carnage. When Lori is distracted, Philip gestures to his mother to leave the house, to make a run for it, and he struggles with Lori for control of the weapon. During the struggle, the gun goes off, and Philip is shot in the chest at close range. But luckily, he'll survive. The bullet punctures both his lungs, his esophagus, stomach, and pancreas. He staggers out of the house into the lawn and is seriously wounded. His parents, who made it out of the house, race to his side, carrying him to safety. After shooting Philip, Lori Dan ran upstairs and turned the gun on herself. The standoff and the strange life of Lori Wasserman Dan is over. So, after shooting, police went to interview the Wassermans, but the request is declined. They don't want nothing to do with the law enforcement. They also attempt to search Lori's bedroom, but only a quick search is allowed before they are asked to leave the house. The Wassermans and their attorneys reminded police that they are grieving the death of their daughter, and now isn't the time to trouble them. Despite needing time to grieve, the Wassermans managed to throw out or destroy almost everything in Lori's bedroom. The Wassermans leave little for police to look at when they finally given access to. So, following the horrific and terrifying events of May 20th, Chief Herbert Tim of the Winnetka Police is livid. He wants to know how someone like Lori had access to multiple weapons. He is asking just one of the many questions the community is left with, in the wake of the tragedy. Within weeks of the shooting, the Wassermans left Illinois for good, relocating to Florida, being 1,300 miles away in Rotten. It's Boca Raton, Bocaraton, allows them to decline multiple requests to return to Illinois, and suspicious they don't want nothing to do with it. Just like they would really want nothing to do with Lori. And if anything came with Lori, they just paid them off. They didn't want nothing to do with Lori. They don't want nothing to do with this case either. Lori's parents never spoke to the press or the families, choosing to hide behind their lawyers and shield themselves from scrutiny. The only statement her parents offer was issued a few days after event on May 20th. Quote, Mrs. Wasserman and I reach out to all the families in their suffering. We suffer with you. Our prayers is that time will help alleviate the pain. End quote. In 1989, Joe and Linda Corman, the parents of 8-year-old Nicholas Corman, murdered by Lori Dann in the classroom, sued the Wassermans for damages, claiming that the Wassermans' negligence and refusal to seek inpatient treatment for their daughter was the result of their death of their son. Also, the weapons. The Wassermans obtained legal counsel attempting to avoid payouts, but they were unsuccessful. The Cormans eventually agreed to a settlement when the court made it clear that the Wassermans shared responsibility for the actions of their daughter on that dreadful day of May 20th, 1988. And Norman Wasserman died in 2006, and Lori's mother Edith passed away in 2010. Three members of the Wasserman family are buried in Shalom Memorial Park in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which Lori's is unmarked and nobody knows where it's at. Because I don't know if why, but you can't find it. It's unmarked and very secretive. The people of Highland Park, Winnetka, and Glencoe, Illinois still remember May 20th. They don't think about it often, but it's still there. Under the surface, children who lost their sense of safety at school, parents and families who suddenly didn't recognize the community they had called home. Also, during this time, a lot of people actually, this is when the Tylenol murders was going on. A lot of people thought Lori Dann had something to do with the Tylenol murders, but there's nothing. I don't think she could have pulled off, with her mental state, I don't think she could have pulled off something, like that. Now, since that event, Corn's murder inside the elementary school was among the first to feature promptly in a 24-hour news cycle, so mostly revolving around Dan's mental state because no other school shooting had received such wide coverage. The murder is sometimes called the first school shooting. Since Corman's murder, a school shooting has been widely reported almost every year. Others note that the shooting marked the end of innocence for the prosperous community along Chicago's North Shore, which hadn't seen murder in 30 days. All but one of the victims wounded by Dan recovered from their injuries, including a girl who was shot and suffered severe internal injuries. The victim and their parents received intensive support to help them cope with the psychological effects of the attack. So after that, parents and members of the community, devoted many years to campaigning for gun control. Philip Andrew gave interviews about gun control from the hospital bed right after that all happened, and later became active in the local and state gun control organization and the executive director of the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence. He became a lawyer he subsequently became a lawyer and then an FBI agent, so good for him. The Dr. Donald Monroe, superintendent of Winnetka School District 36, noted his safe school was not as isolated and insulated as he thought. At the time of the shooting, Hubbard Woods, like many schools, was an open campus and many doors, such as the individual classrooms, kept open. After shooting, a pattern of single-point entry emerged in schools, so there's only one way in and one way out. I know in the high school where my son used to go to, I don't know about the elementary, I haven't been to the elementary, but the high school where my son went to, you can't even go in there. You have to push a buzzer, and they have to see you, they have to buzz you in, so you just can't go in any door that you want. So hopefully they continue getting better at this, and our children, all these school shootings will stop, because they've gotten some really Sandy Hook, there's some in Florida. But alright, hopefully y'all like the telling of the story of the many faces of Lori Dann. Again, this was written and researched by Nina instead of the Already Gone podcast, also with some information that I read from the Murder of Innocence book. If you like that, please rate and review wherever you're listening to this. Also, in the show notes, it would be the Boston next year in Boston, Massachusetts. I don't have the date, but you can look at the link. I'm not going to tell you what the date is. You look at the link. The link will be in the description. True Crime and Paranormal Podcast Festival, which is very fun. I hope to see you there, so you have a whole year to get ready for it. But yeah, join my social media groups. I'm at Facebook at Truck Stop Murder and True Crime, on Instagram at Truck Stop Murder, I believe. It's been so long since I looked at my names. and Twitter, well, X, whatever it's called, at Truck Murder. All the links will be in the description, in the show notes. So, and if you want to email me, you can email me at truckstopmurder@gmail.com. And I haven't gave this a while. If you want to mail me a letter or hate mail or everything, you can mail me, or box or whatever you want to do. Mail this. My address is Gary Howard, 2740 North Mayfair Avenue, Springfield, Missouri, 65803. Now, after the 2740 North Mayfair Avenue, push H387. So it's like a P.O. box. So Gary Howard, 2740 North Mayfair at Mayfair Avenue, P.O. Box H387, Springfield, Missouri, 65803. I'll also have that in the descriptions. Well, all right then. Thank you for listening. And as I always say, you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with a 2x4. Or in this case, we should have helped her. You have a good one.
Huh?